Do you think of yourself as a rational person? Someone who makes decisions based on logic and reason, rather than whims or emotions? Well, if so, you're not alone. Most people believe they are rational, but recent studies show that we are all affected by a variety of cognitive biases that influence our decision-making without us even realizing it, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports one's prior beliefs or hypotheses. For example, if you believe that all politicians are corrupt, you may only pay attention to news stories that highlight their shady dealings while ignoring those that portray them in a positive light. This bias can lead to the formation of echo chambers where people are only exposed to information that reinforces their existing beliefs, which can contribute to polarization and the spread of misinformation. For example, if a certain brand of shoes is being worn by most people in your peer group, you might feel pressured to buy them too, even if you don't really like or need them. This bias can result in the spread of harmful behaviors or beliefs, simply because they are widespread or endorsed by authority figures, also known as the "I knew it all along" effect. This cognitive bias causes people to believe that past events were more predictable than they actually were. For example, after a team wins the championship, fans might claim that they knew the team would win all along, even though the outcome was uncertain at the time. This bias can lead to overconfidence and a false sense of control over events. For example, if you're shopping online and presented with hundreds of products to choose from, you might experience analysis paralysis and take longer to make a purchase decision compared to if you had fewer options. For example, you might feel more comfortable spending money that you've earmarked for a specific purpose, such as a vacation, even if the actual source of the funds doesn't matter. This bias can affect financial decisions and can lead to suboptimal outcomes based on the time, effort, or resources that have already been invested, even if it's no longer a wise or beneficial use of resources. For example, you might stay in a bad relationship out of fear of being alone, or it's important to be aware of these biases because they can significantly impact our decision-making process and lead us to make irrational or suboptimal choices. By understanding and recognizing these biases, we can work to overcome them and become more rational and logical thinkers, because you've already spent years with that person. Even if the relationship is unhealthy or unfulfilling, this bias can lead to wasted resources and missed opportunities. This bias can lead to procrastination and difficulty committing, which can hinder progress toward achieving goals. In fact, there are at least 13 of these biases that can trick your brain into making irrational choices. For example, if you're playing a game where you can either win $10 with a 50% chance or lose $10 with a 50% chance, this cognitive bias causes people to completely avoid risks or uncertainty even if the potential benefits outweigh the potential drawbacks. For example, you might refuse to invest in stocks because you're unwilling to take on any risk, even if a financial advisor recommends that it's a wise and necessary part of a diversified portfolio. This bias can lead to missed opportunities and a suboptimal financial situation, also known as the head in the sand mentality. This cognitive bias causes people to avoid or ignore negative information that could be useful for making decisions. For example, if you have a poor credit score, you might avoid checking it because the information would be upsetting or stressful. This bias can lead to a lack of awareness of important information and can hinder effective decision-making. You might be more likely to choose the option to avoid the pain of losing, even if the expected value of both options is the same. This bias can lead to risk-averse behavior and can affect financial decisions, such as holding on to losing stocks for too long, or refusing to invest in potentially profitable ventures due to fear of potential losses. For example, If you admire a celebrity for their talent and good looks, you might automatically assume that they are also a great role model and trustworthy spokesperson even without any evidence to support that claim. This bias can lead to the acceptance of misleading advertising or the blind trust of influential individuals. So if you want to learn more about them and how to spot them so you don't fall victim to them, then keep watching this video. But before we get started, be sure to hit that like button for more videos like this one. And let's jump right in. Number 1. Confirmation bias. This is the tendency to search for, interpret, favor. This is a cognitive bias that describes how the presentation or framing of information can influence people's choices even if the underlying options are objectively the same. For example, if you're given a choice between a 50% chance of winning $100 and a 50% chance of losing $75, you might be more likely to take the gamble because it's framed in terms of potential profit. However, if the same option is presented as a 50% chance of losing $25 and a 50% chance of keeping $25, you might be less likely to take the gamble even though the expected value is the same in both cases. This bias can affect various aspects of decision-making, such as medical treatments, retirement plans, and public policies. Number 2. Availability heuristic. This is a mental shortcut where people make judgments based on how easily. Examples come to mind. For instance, after seeing a few news reports about plane crashes, you might start feeling anxious about flying even though statistically, it's one of the safest modes of transportation. This bias can cause people to overestimate the likelihood of events that are vivid, recent, or emotionally charged, leading to irrational fears or exaggerated perceptions of risk. Number 3. Anchoring bias. This is a cognitive bias that causes people to rely too heavily on the first piece of information they receive when making decisions. For example, if you see a TV ad for a new car that has a starting price of $40,000, you may automatically assume that it's worth that amount, even if the actual market value is much lower. This bias can lead to poor financial decisions such as overpaying for products or services, because people are anchored to an initial price or valuation. Number 4. Bandwagon effect, also known as the herd mentality. This bias causes people to do or believe something because it's popular, or everyone else is doing it. Number 5. Halo effect. This cognitive bias occurs when people's overall impression of a person, product, or brand influences how they perceive its other attributes. Number 6. Hindsight bias. Number 7. Loss aversion. This cognitive bias describes people's tendency to feel the pain of a loss more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Number 8. Framing effect. Number 9. Inaction bias. This is a cognitive bias that causes people to take longer to make decisions when there are more options available. Number 10. Mental accounting. This is a cognitive bias that causes people to mentally categorize or allocate money differently even if the funds are technically fungible or interchangeable. Number 11. Ostrich effect. Number 12. Sunk cost fallacy. This is a cognitive bias that causes people to continue investing in something such as a relationship or a project. And number 13. Zero risk bias. So do you recognize any of these cognitive biases in yourself? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more informative content. Thanks for watching.